In late 2021, AEW was running wild. Following the debuts of Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson and CM Punk, the promotion's momentum was palpable. A stark contrast to WWE's cold return to the road. As fans looked ahead to an ultimately transformative 2022, they'd often do so under the presumption that AEW will be adding another top star, as Kevin Owens' contract neared its expiration. Ultimately, Owens would opt to re-sign, making a surprising choice that far more surprisingly would lead him to 2 WrestleMania main events. One of the key players of this latest WWE boom, Owens' decision went well enough that this window of uncertainty got somewhat lost to time. With that in mind, I thought it would be interesting to consider the alternative. What if Kevin Owens did make the jump? Does that change the chaos of 2022 in any way, shape or form? How badly does that impact the new regime ahead of WWE, and to what extent would it extend AEW's hot streak? Well, I wanted to ponder those possibilities, turning to 3 of LNG's finest for assistance. Leader of the Wheeler Yuta Supporters Club, Novi is a long-time AEW fan that's prone to bursts of aggression, particularly when drinking. His fellow young gun, Caden Lee, is more known for making magic, which roughly translates to interrupting conversations for entirely irrelevant questions and or updates. Providing on-the-ground insight, Mark is a Daily's Place veteran, sitting in attendance for many of the moments that would launch AEW's post-pandemic ascent. Together, we will try our best to answer the question, what if Kevin Owens joined AEW? Alright fellas, I think it makes sense to kind of set the stage, set the scene, right, before we get too deep in fantasy booking. End of 2021, start of 2022, it's not that long ago, but it feels like a lifetime ago, because by the end of 2022, wrestling would be in a different place, maybe the most transformative year in wrestling in, God, I think over 20 years, 2022 would be, probably since the end of WCW and ECW in 2001, of course with Vince McMahon's kind of losing power. He would re-emerge for the Sal, but that was the end of his kind of creative regime. All that would happen on the AEW side of things, and as a result of all that actually happened, it's easy to lose sight of what could have happened. As we approach 2022, one of the big stories in wrestling was Kevin Owens, who his contract was coming up, and AEW were on the heels of getting Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk. They were red hot. It honestly felt for a moment there, especially, as we headed into the fall, it felt like they were on the verge of taking over the world there for a moment. And the Kevin Owens news was part of that momentum. Again, that's kind of lost to time, but it very much was. This wasn't a thing that the public viewed as a 50-50. This was a thing that people saw as like, Kevin Owens is in next. He's about to follow him through the door. It's fascinating to ponder what that would have looked like, and there are many, many kind of knock-on effects of that. But I guess the main thing, Caden Lee, you will recall this. The day that Kevin Owens re-signed, it was seen as like, damn, really? Like, people were stunned, and I don't think anyone could have foreseen how well it would turn out for him. So this is not like a sort of 5% chance thing. This was something people expected to happen, right?
Yeah, I remember at that point, that would have been like my freshman year of college. So I wasn't doing any podcasting, but I was very active on Twitter. And I remember it was a guarantee. We were already fantasy booking those first few months. Like, okay, what is he going to do when he comes in? People were pretty convinced. Yeah, when he re-signed, it was a mixture of like, that's insane. I don't know why he did this. And also, why did he do it? What is on the other side in AEW that made him go, maybe I shouldn't go right now?
More on that later.
Little did we know.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time, and 2022, as we said, was a transformative year. And Kevin Owens, part of what makes this interesting is he was no passenger for what has happened in WWE in the past few years, right? It's not like he was just an onlooker while they caught fire. He wasn't Cody Rhodes, he wasn't at the center of it, but he absolutely was a major player in terms of, opposite the Bloodline or alongside Sami Zayn. Speaking of Sami Zayn, his contract was also coming up soon, and at one point there was a lot of excitement. Oh, maybe they were coming together. I think inevitably we're going to end up fantasy booking some Sami Zayn tonight, because of course we are. But I do think it's important to note, before anyone gets any confusion out of this, I think we're all very aware that the Sami Zayn thing was a much less likely outcome, regardless of what Kevin did. I think Sami Zayn was staying put, Marcus. That was kind of the sentiment at the time among most people, right?
Right, because I remember vividly when the news dropped that Kevin's contract was about to come up and Sammy's was near there. I remember everybody like putting up old Mount Rushmore pics from PWG of Kevin. Like Kevin had, or whoever had like the coordinates to Mount Rushmore in his location. Mm-hmm. People were like reposting his ROH theme, which by the way is a fucking banger, by the way.
Yes.
I thought I would mention that. Like putting up his ladder wars with El Generico, all that stuff. And everyone, people asked about Sammy, was like, nah, he ain't going nowhere. It was like, it's like, yo, they're usually a package deal. They're usually together at every company, and people just automatically, off the rip, was like, yeah, if Kevin does go, Sammy is not leaving.
Right, and so I think that's important before inevitably, in about 30 minutes, we start throwing out some Kevin and Sami tag matches in AEW. We're aware, folks, it probably wasn't going to happen. Before we get to AEW, let's talk WWE. Novi, this is an intriguing one. Mm-hmm. Just gut feeling before we go into the details. How different does WWE look in the next few years if Kevin Owens is not there? Because he plays a bigger role than your kind of gut feeling, I think, may suggest. What do you reckon, Novi?
If I had to put a name to be like, so Roman's obviously P1 for people that matter to WWE in that period. I'd say Cody is right there following him. I think Kevin's right there too. He's involved in everything. His fingerprints are on every major storyline. Some of the biggest stuff. We're going to talk about the WrestleMania matches. We're going to talk about the Bloodline a little more later. He is all involved. And it's totally different. I don't know who even slot in that role if he's not there.
This is not a perfect comparison, and I'll make that clear, but I think there's something to it. If Roman and Cody are Rock and Austin, there's something to Kevin Owens as their Mick Foley. Yes. It's not perfect, right? But there's something to that, especially with Kevin eventually working with Cody just as he did with Roman. Speaking of Cody Rhodes, this is a little bit conspiracy theorist wacko stuff, but I'll just throw it out there because it's Grinfinite Possibilities. It was time for Cody Rhodes to leave the territory, right? We all agree on this. But
yes,
I do wonder if Kevin Owens, who had a relationship with Cody, right? Famously, Kevin kind of put Cody in touch with the Elite, which would ultimately change pro wrestling. I wonder if Cody's decision was at all impacted by Kevin's status. What I mean by that being, if Kevin had come in January 2022, does Cody feel like he has someone to work with that he wants to, or, I think more relevant, was Cody more comfortable making that leap because Kevin Owens was staying and he was going to be there for another 3 years or whatever it may be? I don't think he had a factor. I think when you're talking about that much money, it doesn't matter where guys are. It's like, this is where he had to go and he had to roll the dice. But, Caden, this is a show for outrageous conspiracies. Mm-hmm. Is there a chance that if Kevin Owens in AEW, Cody's like, I can't go to WWE, man. That place is crazy right now. Did you see the Rumble?
Yeah, because that changes a lot of things. I don't think it changes much for Cody specifically.
Yeah.
It doesn't change much. I think everything kind of stays the same. It might potentially influence his decision a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, he does still decide to leave.
Yeah, he kind of had to, right, Marcus? I think regardless of which friends were where, it was time to go.
Yeah, there's always that point in wrestling where it's just time to leave the territory, brother. Like, at that point, Cody was just basically doing side quests for a year and change. Like, he was doing the QT Marshall feud, which I get what he was going for with the whole, San Martino's Zabisco stuff. But it's QT Marshall, brother. It was never going to work. It is what it is. Then he solved racism. Then he fought for America. Then he kept, putting over everybody that debuted. The whole Malachi Black stuff was odd. Set himself on fire. Tagging with Pac on pay-per-view in a weird mashup tag. It was just a weird time. And it was at a point where it was just time. Your time was up, Cody. And he knew it.
Yeah, this was one when I was making my notes. I was like, oh, that's fun. And I just thought, I was like, he had to go, dude. If Kevin Owens made a good decision with his situation, Cody made the ultimate one, right? Because it will be lost to history because of how things changed. When he went back there, whatever anyone thinks of Cody Rhodes, this part's undeniable. That was bold, dude. WWE that he returned to was like the worst it had ever been creatively. The 2022 Rumble was horrific.
That shit was crazy.
And because, like, in history, it will just be people will pair Cody with the Triple H regime. They'll forget that he went back willing to play in the fire that was a Vince McMahon-led WWE. So, like, he deserves props for that.
He does. He's very much Dusty in every single way in that regard. Where they know when to hit the eject button.
Yes, and they believe in themselves to a fault, and in that case, it transformed him into one of the biggest stars of the era, right? So, definitely deserves props. Speaking of big stars, have you heard of this Steve Austin guy? Kevin Owens, upon re-signing and having that question that Caden mentioned, why would he do this? Just mere months later, walks into WrestleMania and has one of the more magical scenes of the decade in which him and Steve Austin have an impromptu match. Steve Austin takes a suplex on the floor. Kevin Owens does like a one-man build for that thing. And Steve Austin, I think, has been pretty clear in saying that it was, it wasn't saying he was going to do with anyone, right? He wasn't going to do it with Austin Theory or whoever. So I guess the question is, Novi, it's, tough to get in the mind of Steve Austin, but if Kevin Owens doesn't re-sign, does Steve Austin, has he ever returned to the ring? And if so, was it that year? Has it been afterwards? What do you think, Novi?
I think it eventually comes, but it definitely doesn't happen that year. I don't even think it happens the year after. I don't even think it happens the year after that. Again, it's hard to put in the mind of Steve Austin. Of course it is. He's probably thinking about his cat, fucking Poncho or some shit. But I think he just he respected Kevin Owens, the wrestler, I think to a pretty great extent, almost like a lot of people who work with Kevin do, it seems. And I think he probably it was all forming together to make for something he believed in truly. He's been on record. I won't do anything unless I believe in it.
Yeah, he's very particular. I mean, very, very particular. I mean, there was even the thing, famously, right? It was clearly supposed to be him that finished the deal when Cody won the belt in Philly. And it seemed like that was a case of he didn't love the way it was going to be presented and just, did his own thing, that's been the case for him for a long time now. Caden, I'm intrigued. If we just say for sure he's wrestling in 2022, that was Dallas, right? That Mania?
Dallas, yeah.
Let's just say he's doing it. Who would be next up to wrestle him? Would it actually have been Sami Zayn or someone in the comedy heel role? I mean, Sami wrestled Knoxville that year, so
yeah, Sami is the
jackass
crew.
Yeah.
I mean, you think back to it, I don't know. It's because the only people really at that point, because Steve would have had him in the face. The only other people I can think to would have been if he did a deal with Happy Corbin.
Exactly, and
I don't think he's coming back to work Happy Corbin.
Right.
No. If they pitched him Happy Corbin, he would tell him to get the fuck out of my face. I'm going back to do some broken skull pods.
I honestly, I think ironically, I think Sammy is the only one that's even close, and I still don't think he does it because you needed a heel that could be a comedy heel, but had enough cred and rep to make it worth Steve's while. And Kevin's he walks that fine tightrope, right?
He's perfect.
Yep.
Now we're going to talk about CM Punk more later. But this is a weird thing that I was kind of kicking around in my head. So before we get into CM Punk and AEW, let's just imagine everything about Punk goes the same way, which, let's be honest, it probably does regardless of KO, right? He probably ends up going back. In a weird way, Marcus, if Kevin Owens doesn't wrestle Steve Austin and Steve Austin doesn't wrestle that match, does it make it easier for Punk to lure Austin back into the ring because he hadn't have had that happy ending against Kevin Owens and instead he would still have that mentality of, I can have another one, I think. Whereas now, by the time Punk came back, Steve's mindset was, I already tempted fate once with the happy ending, and I got it. Can he do it again? Do you think it changes things in terms of, a guy trying to get the Austin match? If Austin doesn't wrestle with Kevin, is he more likely to wrestle in later years? What do you think?
This is a tough one, actually. So,
yeah.
I think the Kevin Owens thing was just very much a stars aligned moment. It was perfect. There was really nobody else, but Kevin embodied the ethos of what Austin was about as a wrestler far more than anybody at that time, really. Because he could do everything. He could play face, he could play heel, he could be every man, he could be pissed off asshole, he could do all that stuff. And in the way they wrestled, he wrestled safe, he wrestled aggressive. He could just do a whole lot of things that made that particular moment, that particular Mania work. later years, it would have really depended if Punk literally just did the whole Fox thing, and he actually did agree to that deal to come back to WWE like he was in negotiations with at that time. If that were the case, then sure, that probably would have been the match. But that's probably a whole other can of worms that I got my thumb on, and it's cracked open slightly. So
Yes.
we'll get back to it.
I think the most likely outcome is if Kevin doesn't re-sign, Steve Austin's last match remained WrestleMania 19 until, we get to WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, which could be a different matter altogether. But that's a different story for another day. And I absolutely believe Steve will be lacing them up for that one because I think the payouts will be insane. But we'll get to that.
It'll be a shitload of money that you'll be financially irresponsible to turn down. Like, that's just what it's going to be.
I tend to agree. Now, let's talk about the Bloodline, who I think it's fair to say, and it almost became a bit at the end there, whereas like Kevin is their lead protagonist opposite them. He turned it into comedy, like, oh my god, I'm still fighting these guys. Will they ever leave me alone? And
Kevin is so funny because he is so obvious when he's not feeling something, or he just does not care about what he's doing at the time.
But he always brought it though, right? He always made the most of it. Like I remember even the match they had in France, where it was like Tamara and Solo versus Randy and Kevin. Kevin was incredible in that match. Like he always outperformed his role. The Bloodline was already a thing. If Kevin leaves in January 2022, the Bloodline is already like 18 months deep, just shy of that. And Kevin has already worked with Roman a ton, right? They worked at the Rumble in the Thunderdome and things of that nature.
All that stuff.
Yeah,
I think he was the main event of that match where they did the Sami of babyface turn.
Yes.
He did so many matches.
They were the main event.
And the one that they had before any of this, before Kevin would have left, is the one where Paulie, he can't do the cuffs. Remember this, Caden?
Yeah, Royal Rumble 2022. I believe it's in it's in the Tropicana Dome.
21, right?
Tropicana Field. Yeah, 2021.
Yeah.
At Tropicana Field. Yeah, and he can't get the handcuffs.
You have that one. They have like a ladder match. They have a cage match on Christmas, maybe. They didn't really have a ladder match. I know that. Yeah.
I have Kevin's cage matchup just to like check it. Because they have the last man standing, and then at TLC they did a TLC match.
That match was tremendous from what I remember. Yeah.
Really I think that was really good.
Yeah. It's crazy that the match Marcus just referenced with the Sami babyface turn. You think of that as the Kevin Owens opposite the Bloodline thing and then the Uso stuff. Dude, that's 2 years earlier. He's wrestling Roman at Royal Rumble, and he wrestles him again in 2024. Like, he is the opponent for the Bloodline. That would be cut off in the middle. So I guess the question is, Novi, how much does it change the Bloodline angle? And who is the guy that they call upon to, like, make up the difference? Because by this point, it's hard to even go back to that roster. But, like, I guess you just have to lean more on, like, Drew and, God forbid, Riddle. What do you think, Novi?
Yeah, that's like it. Things look thin really quickly because
they
had a big problem there where Roman was champ for so long. He just ran out of opponents. Like, that's going to happen. But Kevin Owens was so good. You can always kind of press that button and he'd slot in. He'd have a good match. He'd have a good program. That's all you needed. So the problem is you take that easy button out. I don't know if there's a single other person who is as good of an easy button as he is. The only name that I can even think of who might be elevated a little bit more, I don't know if he'd be that same kind of role. I think LA Knight would probably get a couple more shots at it.
Yeah.
He could do, I think, a good program with him at any point, but it's just like Kevin was just so perfect for it.
And even LA Knight, which I think is a great call because he's probably one of the more popular baby faces the last couple of years. It feels like they could have done more with, right?
There was a time. There was a moment.
Yeah.
There was a window there.
There was a window. But even in his case, that would still be, an 18-month wait until he's rolling after Kevin left? Like, dude, that would have been... I mean, again, I don't want to overstate in the sense I don't think Kevin's the kind of loss where the ratings would have tanked or the attempt. But I do think you'd be putting the shows together going, God, we could really use Kevin Owens right now, I think.
Because he can make anything work. He can be the guy that can get to these explosive segments with. The matches are going to be a real work because he's going to work his ass off in them every single time. And the other part of the equation is very simple. The Sami aspect of it wouldn't have worked quite as well. Because Sami by himself, because people forget, before Sami got into the Bloodline, that shit was going down quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then he came in, he added a whole new aspect of it, like his dynamic with the Usos and earning the trust of Roman. Those backstage segments where they really felt like real, authentic people with real, authentic motives. Like, that stuff was really starting to give it even more legs. In fact, it was basically steroids to that angle because it made it to the greatest thing ever. People want to watch SmackDown. Like, the Uzi stuff, like, that was just impromptu bullshit. The trial of Sami Zayn. That's some of the best shit they've ever done TV-wise.
Yeah.
And then everyone knows the connection with Kevin and Sami. Sami turning babyface at the end of that Rumble, that shit wouldn't have worked with LA Knight. It wouldn't have.
But in a weird way, and this is where, you can twitch yourself in all sorts of directions with this. In a strange way, because Kevin was there, it gave them the easy out of, like... Because remember, people wanted Sami to win the belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did. They really did.
Because Kevin was there, it was like... They could kind of get the perfect, mix, because we can put him back with Kevin. They can work with the Usos. Incredible match, obviously, and one of Kevin's other... his second WrestleMania main event that we got because of this run. But it's interesting to imagine Sami being red hot, but there not being that, like, easy leap-off point to put him back with Kevin, right? Because then what would you have done with him at WrestleMania? So, like, who does he, because he doesn't have the Kevin tag, who would he have teamed with, Caden? What do you think?
Well, I was wondering that too. Like, I'm kind of like, I've been looking through the cage match a little bit on Kevin and Sami because I wanted to see, okay, what are they doing in fall 2022? Because you have the Rumble match. When you look at this, you kind of look and go, oh, Sami was fucked if you don't have Kevin Owens in here.
Yeah.
Before this, Sami's doing quite literally nothing. He's tagging with Solo Sikoa for the most part. And every once in a while,
hold on.
He has a singles match. But he's just losing. His last match before War Games, he lost in the first round of the SmackDown World Cup to Butch in 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
Ew.
And then he has the War Games match. And then he starts winning matches. He beats Sheamus. He beats AJ Styles. He wrestles John Cena and Kevin Owens on that SmackDown, which that probably doesn't happen if Kevin Owens doesn't resign.
I didn't watch really any of that stuff, but I
so
forgot how much he was spinning his wheels until then.
He was doing nothing.
It was crazy.
I think
Kevin's the same thing. When you look at Kevin's fall, Kevin hadn't wrestled in the last 2 months. He was injured. I think he was out for some sort of injury or he was taking time off. His last match before War Games that was televised was September 30th of 2022.
He got
he was doing a theory feud before that and teaming with Johnny Gargano against Alpha Academy.
Yes.
So there were very clearly at this point before Sami starts heating up and you can say, okay, let's add Kevin in here and you have a very easy 3 to 4 months of TV. Even if it doesn't take off like it does, you can still tell that story for the next 3 to 4 months. That I don't think even happens. I think they ditch the Sami thing so quickly if you don't have Kevin to rely on.
What's interesting about your point is, so I think we all know how great Sami Zayn is, and as a result of how great he is, he would have got it to a point where people cared about him fighting Roman regardless. But to Caden's point, with how Triple H worked then especially, they knew very early on they were doing Usos versus Owens and Zayn. That that's what they were going to, which allowed them to shoot all the angles knowing Cody gets Roman, they pivot to the Usos. Without that long-term destination, to Caden's point, you do wonder if it's as dramatic a conclusion to the Sami story. And if it's not, I think people would be a lot less high on that period of Bloodline, which is, that's the best stuff they did, right? That stuff was sensational, as Marcus laid out. So, very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I would want to say, too, I think while they're, running out of opponents at that point, because you don't have Kevin, I think there's a lot of free agents. If they pop up, they throw a lot of money at. I think that's where Sami probably lands. Working one of the free agent, they throw a bunch of money at, I would say.
Yeah, there's a name in particular that you won't be surprised I want to bring up that we'll get to later on. But in the meantime, Triple H, I just mentioned him a moment ago. I think with the way that things were going to go with AEW and with, whatever happened once Vince was not in charge of running the shows creatively, I think there was always going to be a shift, right? Regardless of what happened, what happened on the shows, there was going to be a shift because the momentum and the perception was the big elements there. Kevin Owens made the shows better, but being able to inform the audience this is no longer the creative work of Vince McMahon was huge for what happened in 2022. Because because let's be honest, some of those initial Triple H shows, they were not, the finest work
crazy.
of giant. Yeah, I mean, there's one that has like a 20-minute Theory Ziggler main event. And I remember the match being fine, but the point is, like, it wasn't an easy transition, but people just were excited that it was new and it was different. And that would have been the case whether Kevin was there or not. However, do we think the ascent of that regime and that transformation is slowed without having Kevin? Because it sure was nice to have him. But then to Caden's point, I guess he wasn't necessarily there a ton early on. I know he worked with Drew on TV. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think Kevin has a big factor in that initial shift? What do you think, Marcus, in that kind of mid-2022 time? Or do you think it doesn't matter as much?
Probably doesn't matter as much. He was really valuable in the long run for them, absolutely. But at that time, again, people were just waiting to be like, okay, Vince isn't here no more. This is a fresh coat of paint. This is a blank slate. We're getting the ground running. Let's just see something different. Kevin would have made those shows a lot better because, again, 20-plus minute matches with guys who you really don't want to see wrestle 20 minutes with on those 3-hour Raws, where Triple H is basically trying to say, hey, guys, we're a wrestling show now, with an audience that didn't give a fuck and still doesn't give a fuck about wrestling like that. That was kind of wild. Like, he would have been a good part of it, but they were just waiting for anything to be different at that time, Kevin or no Kevin.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it changes much. I think that part is just going to happen regardless of Kevin, and that's not to downplay his importance, but it was a wider shift in the industry, right? I think that's fair to say. Yeah. The big final thing I want to touch on with WWE, if Kevin Owens leaves Caden Lee, does Elias get to play Ezekiel? And if no, how much does that damage his value as a convention booking? Your thoughts, Caden?
So I was hoping we'd bring up Ezekiel because that's such an important part of 2022 with Kevin Owens. When I was like, you were talking about Triple H and Kevin, and like how he was there. Kevin's first match, because he was out for also like 2 months before Triple H took over. Kevin's first match with Triple H was a 50-second no contest with Ezekiel.
Because I think what they did, I could be wrong. I think he like kills Ezekiel. I think he just beats the shit out of him. Triple H's thing when he first took over was like, I need to make clear to the audience that I agree some of this stuff sucked. And remember the stuff he did with Theory where he would have
the Theory stuff was wild.
Yes, exactly.
He was like, he had Roman bury him on the mic. He's like, did they not hear no more?
Yeah, I remember that. I think Ezekiel is an example of that too, Caden. But what do you think? How does this change the legacy of Elias?
Oh, Lord. Yeah, I think Ezekiel still ends up on TV somehow. Look, realistically, this was still Vince McMahon's booking. I think he can go do something with he probably does something with Sami at that point. Because I think Sami, when you come out of WrestleMania, Sami's working Drew McIntyre. So that's a pretty easy one of we can give Drew someone else and we can have Sami do this Ezekiel business.
Something to ponder, folks. The legacy of Elias and or Ezekiel. Let's talk AEW. The obvious thing at the time that everyone believed was going to be Kevin's spot upon arrival. Kenny Omega, obviously, after losing the belt at Full Gear, has to step away, right? His body is, by that point, in tatters, and he has to recover. He's off for like a year almost, right?
Yeah.
10 months, maybe. Mm-hmm. And the big belief was this kind of super elite that had formed was going to be down Omega, and maybe they hit a slight lull, and then Kevin Owens would be the kind of to the rescue for that villainous faction. The issue with that obviously always was how were they going to get Kevin Owens, or Kevin Steen, I guess it would have been, booed in AEW. But creatively, considering all that had happened and Punk and Bryan coming as babyfaces, it feels like Novi, that would have been the spot for him, right? He'd have been Mount Rushmore, heel Kevin Steen, I think, right?
Yeah, I don't know if he would have been heel right away. I think they probably would have let it breathe for a minute, get those pops, but eventually he would go with the Young Bucks, because I just you can get to all the single stuff eventually. That was what everyone thought he was going to do anyways. That's why everyone thought he would come over. So I don't think you want to delay that or hold that back, because it just feels like there's something looming over his run the entire way through. They'd probably get that out of the way.
I definitely think saying to what you said there, like the idea that they would have kind of teased which side is he on, and then it's a big swerve, and
He
I
probably
see
went for
that.
Cole pretty early, I would say.
Yeah, I mean Cole. So let's imagine so Cole's working with Hangman at. The crazy thing is, he may have just gone straight in and worked with Hangman at Revolution.
That's what I think he works with Hangman at Revolution, and I think those trios belts come a little quicker for Cole and Red Dragon.
Look, I'd say this with all respect to Adam Cole, especially right now. That would have been really big for Hangman, dude. Like, if that pay-per-view main event was with Kevin Steen, that would have been a really big deal for him, because he would have been winning.
Huge.
So, presumably winning.
Adam Cole is very much a TNT title guy, if anything.
I think that was I actually liked their match at Revolution, Cole and Hangman.
I did too.
But it was kind of a tough night for Hanger's reign in the sense that there was just bigger things underneath them on that night, you know, and it was palpable. Whereas with Kevin Steen, I don't think it would have been that way. But either way, do we think there's any alternative to, like, does Kevin Steen just come in as an ass-kicking babyface and they don't even reference it? It feels like it would have been an angle with the Bucks or something to that effect, right? Will he, won't he, that kind of vibe.
So if actually went full BTE with it and then shot the angle like a pay-per-view or a big dynamite at the time.
Yeah.
I think the debut that they did with Kazuchika Okada last year, I think that was going to be Steen. I think that's exactly the angle they had planned for Steen.
Do you think there is a chance they could have done Red Dragon around at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we forget? And is there a chance that they turn the Bucks babyface with Steen opposite Cole and Red Dragon, and they have a sort of clash of these major, you know, trios? What do you think? Is there something to that? Maybe the Bucks at this point had completed their famed heel run in 2021. They'd lost the belts, obviously, the prior summer. Maybe was that where they were going to build to, perhaps, I wonder. That would have made some sense, right? Because Red Dragon were around for a bit there.
I think it does, actually, because you're kind of planning for Omega to get back eventually, and then you can kind of they knew he was going to get cheered then, so that would probably be a good, like, you know, it set yourself up better for that.
Yep, and
what are the Bucks doing at this point? They're kind of tweeners, right?
That's what I was going to get to.
Sort of, kind of.
The Bucks would have benefited the most from Kevin coming in. It would have kind of revitalized them either as heels or gave them a ton of juice as baby faces. 2022, they do some really good stuff, but they also kind of float around, right? There's not like, direction-wise, it isn't the strongest stuff. They would have benefited immensely, I think, from Kevin being around. I guess the bigger question, we're talking creative, and we'll do some more of that in a second. Does Kevin have an impact in terms of maintaining the momentum they had going into 2022? And the reason I ask is, it's easy to remember Brawl Out and all that happened once Vince was out and all that stuff. But if we're being honest, there was, like, signs of creative trouble before that. Like the Double or Nothing build and the Owen. Yeah. I remember going,
that was where you
started
seeing.
You raised an eyebrow.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's kind of what allowed WWE to so quickly turn the tide, because AEW is already slightly staggering. Yeah. Is that different if Kevin Steen's there, Marcus? What do you think?
Different? I'm not quite sure, because I do remember this time there was like black and gold after black and gold after black and gold, like alumni coming through the company. Forbidden Doors season was so weird, because that was the first time they did it. The Owen was happening a little bit after that. Well, before that, it was a little wonky, a little unfocused. The Double Nothing was infamously long, and it was basically just stalling until Game 7 of Eastern Conference Finals ended. and then like the first Forbidden Door build was like wonky. Everyone got hurt. TV was weird. Show was a massive success, don't get me wrong, but again, things were starting to happen. But I think Kevin Owens would have probably been a good stabilizing bridge, because he's a guy that could do anything that you ask him to do. Like, he can be that kick-ass, no-nonsense heel, or babyface for that matter. Every man babyface, he could do all of those things, and he could really help your TV quite a bit. It's not like it's younger Eddie Kingston in that regard, where he's less grumpy than Eddie, but the quality remains.
Yeah, and Eddie, for all of his popularity with the AEW audience, which was immense, he's one of the most over guys, you know, that promotion's ever had, and still, Kevin obviously had such TV fame out coming off of Raw and SmackDown, right? So it would have been, I'm with you, it would have been a huge addition, yeah. And he could have worked with Eddie, which I'm sure we'll speculate on later. But what do you think, Novi? Would it have slowed things and how quickly it changed in 2022 or not really?
I think it absolutely changes 2022 because I think the same concept with Kevin Owens being that just easy button. You press it when there's something gone wrong. You just go to him every single time. I think they just go to him after Forbidden Door with all the injuries. When there's a lull, there was a couple like world title programs that were kind of like they were just there. I don't think Kevin lets them get to that point. I think you just press that button and he elevates everything around him.
Fellas, there's a Hiroshi Tanahashi Jon Moxley match that happens when CM Punk gets injured.
Yeah.
I don't think that's CM Punk in that match.
I was gonna say
I don't think I'm gonna have it.
We're about to about Punk. It feels like if we presume Kevin came in and put Hangman over at Revolution, when things got weird, like if it was able to turn to Kevin and put the belt on him, most likely.
Yes.
Unless Brawl Out had an impact on how excited he was to work in AEW. We will get to that in a moment. Before we do, there's an elephant in the room that I will now address. Chris Jericho. Because you are...
I forgot.
Dude, you are fucking insane if you think Chris Jericho is going a week without pitching something with Kevin. Like, with all of their history...
How come my name's on this?
He would have immediately had a ton of ideas.
He would have got a whiff
one.
of him coming into the company. He would have watched like the first BTETs. It would have immediately ran to Tony or ran to one of the Bucks. Like, can I do something with them guys? Please, pretty please.
So I got this list thing I used to do.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude. Like, and yes, it's not the most exciting thing, but it absolutely would have happened because it's for 2022. Jericho had a lot of pull, dude.
Yeah,
like that was the last real year where he had like real pull with Tony backstage. But I will say, 2022 Jericho could still go. He was good.
Yeah,
probably would be good, to be honest with you.
That was his last good year.
It just, if we were going to bring it to, like, imagine he came in and he, like, helps Jericho against Eddie Kingston. It's like, that's cool, but it didn't have the same pull for AEW fans it would the Elite stuff. Like, that was much more, because then, as Novi alluded to, if he was a heel, the whole thing you'd be building to was, I can't wait for Omega to come back and put this prick at his place, right? Which would have been huge, dude.
Yeah,
because they tried that with Cole coming in because he was trying to take over the Elite and be the guy. Because they were trying to continue the whole like Civil War thing from 2017. Because that was supposed to be Cole, but he signed with WWE, so that ended up being Cody instead. Which that's another what if. What if Adam Cole didn't sign and that feud happened?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of with Cole. I think there's going to be a few of those that may be future episodes because his career went in a few different ways, right? And it's an interesting story now, especially because I hope that story isn't complete. I hope there's some more chapters for Adam Cole to write. But
I have a question to my friends about Jericho. So let's say you get Kevin Steen into this company, because this would have been like early 2022. Just 3 months into the year is when Chris Jericho turns heel and goes on to have the Jericho Appreciation Society against the Blackpool Combat Club, Eddie, Ortiz, and Santana match in Anarchy, and then they have the Blood and Guts match as well. Is there a possibility Chris Jericho and the Inner Circle don't break up in order for that first Anarchy in the Arena match to be a Mount Rushmore versus Inner Circle match?
I think there is, but I think we can go a step further. Jericho Appreciation Society, you know how much Kevin loves 2.0. I think you can meet. I think there's something in the middle of those two things that you just alluded to.
Hey, man,
again,
3 French Canadians, and they have a really good role on TV at the time. And Kevin would have added a lot of gasoline to that fire. I would have minded it.
There's definitely a version of Kevin's run. I say this with love and respect, where like he's popping himself and having fun, but he wouldn't have been the business, because that happens in AEW sometimes, right? Guys just kind of just float around in 6-mans, and there's definitely a version of that. CM Punk, for whatever you want to say about his run, he definitely didn't do that, right? CM Punk, he came in and had a eventful run. He definitely just float around. In fear of getting too deep in speculation as to his relationship with Kevin Owens, famously Kevin tweeted the Austin picture the night of Brawl Out, which is one of the funniest wrestling posts of all time.
What a beast. What a fucking beast.
Again, it's hard without speculating on people we don't know, but if we're being honest, we can fantasy book we want. Most likely they never interact in AEW, right? Like on screen, I mean. Because AEW's like, you regularly see guys not overlap or interact. They would have definitely just kept them two guys apart, I think. Not to say that they're like, they would have had a brawl, but it's more a case of if we're booking him in the elite stuff, that didn't overlap with Punk. And as we learnt with Punk's run, there are guys who just never overlap. He didn't do anything on screen with Bryan, for goodness sakes. I mean, that would have been natural, let alone someone like Kevin. So I don't think they would have interacted, but we now do have to talk about Brawl Out for better or worse. I think there is a real chance, genuinely, that Brawl Out would have, entirely destroyed Kevin's interest in being part of it. I actually think there is a version of this move where he kind of floats around, Brawl Out happens, and I'm not going to fantasy book him in the Brawl because that seems psychotic even for this show. But what I'm saying is, let's imagine he goes, he works someone at All Out and he goes back to his hotel room and he hears about this. Am I wrong for thinking there's a chance that Kevin would have been like, man, fuck, this place sucks. Triple H is running WWE now. I'm going to go back there. I feel like there's a real chance of that. And that maybe that's unfair because he probably wouldn't handle it in a way so abrasive. But I'm not sure he would have been a guy they would have called upon in that time. And I think instead could have been he would have really lost interest in the project, which, let's be honest, it felt like the Bucks felt hurt by that whole thing, right? I don't know. It's easy to presume Kevin would have felt the same way. What do you think, Novi?
I think Kevin's in the exact same position like a Kenny is in that situation. I just think they all lost the love for the game. I think it was pretty clear to everyone. That's kind of what it was. And I only think they're starting to get that back this year. I don't think I think Kevin dips the second his contract is up if he's involved in that situation because I just don't think he wants any part of it,
And the big difference, the Bucks had no tie to WWE, right? So they ultimately re-signed. Kevin Owens will be watching Brawl Out while knowing on the other channel one of his biggest supporters is now in charge.
Yeah. Doesn't really been easy for Kevin.
I honestly think in this scenario, I think he ends up going back. I truly feel that way. Anything on Brawl Out, I mean, it's hard to fantasy book because, I'm not going to sit here and go, he would have punched Ace Steel right between the eyes. I don't know what would have happened, right? Who knows what Kevin where he would have been, but it does feel like it would be really optimistic to suggest that Kevin being there would have stopped that from happening, right? Some shit was going to happen with those folks, wasn't it, guys? It was going to happen regardless.
On the verge of exploding. It was what it was. But Kevin is the Bucks main shooter, so you never know. I ain't gonna fancy book it, obviously, because why would you do that? But he would have probably just kind of been like, you know what? I'm not feeling it. He would have been one of the very first calls that Triple H and them guys made because they were making calls to people at the time. They were.
Yeah.
And he would have been number one with a bullet, and he would probably thought about taking the G's.
I agree. Speaking of making calls, there are a couple guys who I think's market value would have been affected by the move. Number one, no surprise I'm bringing this guy up. I try and bring it on every video. Samoa Joe. Okay, this is important. Here's why. Samoa Joe comes into AEW and or Ring of Honor very soon upon becoming available. He legitimately, I think his 90 days ends, he may not have even had 90 days upon for. I think he came in before it was even up. Maybe in a 30-day thing. So he came in really quick, right? Mm-hmm. If Kevin Owens comes in January, is Tony a beat slower on signing Joe? And if he was, we all agree, right? If Joe's still available when Triple H takes over, Joe's back immediately. He would have got him back immediately.
100%.
I think Tony Khan is such a big Samoa Joe fan that he was signing Samoa Joe that second go-round regardless, right? I'm making this happen. He will be in AEW regardless. I don't think he's affected. Do you guys by this?
No. I think Tony just pays him. No. Maybe pays him, has to pay him a little bit more, but pays him.
Yeah, he's not paying. He's one of those guys where he was sprinting to the freaking checkbook to go get Joe. What do you want? Come in.
Yeah. This next one I think is more up for grabs. Claudio Castagnoli. He spent a long time where it was unclear what was going to happen. Do you guys remember this? There was a stretch where he just wasn't. He was just a free agent, just waiting, and we were waiting to see where he'd show up.
Really casual that he was a free agent too. That was the weird part.
Mm-hmm. And this isn't even really something that's connected to Kevin as much as, but it always intrigued me. What if he just doesn't sign for another month? It would have the whole market would have changed, Yeah. But I do wonder. What do you think, Caden? If Kevin comes in January, is there less of a urgency? Oh my God, we need to get Claudio, or is it the same thing because they needed a BCC to be filled out regardless?
I think with this one specifically, like there's so many. I think with some of them, it's like with Brawl Out, just like this. There's so many little factors that could change things. I think Claudio still ends up in the company in general. Does he end up debuting against Zack Sabre Jr.? I don't know. Probably not, because I also think like if Kevin Steen comes in, I also think Danielson doesn't end up in that match, or he doesn't end up concussed for some reason. One little thing changes. One other, like it's so many of those like little chain reaction things. But I think he does. I think Claudio still ends up in the company anyways.
I tend to agree, and now we get to the fun part, fellas. Let's just put some matches out there. What do we got? Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, and AEW. What matches are we throwing together, boys? Just where do we go first here? What comes to mind immediately? I'll start with you, Novi. First things that come to mind when you think of Kevin and AEW. What matches would you throw out there?
There's a lot of them, and I think a lot of people would think of me and then think of a certain someone. You got to have KO work with Eddie Kingston, the Mad King. I got to see what that looks like on TV one good time. I think those promos would be unbelievable, and I think the match would be
right. And it's a great one in the sense, those guys worked a little bit when Eddie was repping Shikara in Ring of Honor. But it has to be said, like, at the time he would have come in, Kevin would have come in after Eddie worked with Punk, and at that point Eddie was like the most popular wrestler in the promotion.
Yeah,
he was on cloud 9.
Yeah, and there's that famous. Do you guys remember that tweet where some fan was like, "I don't know about Kevin Owens, Eddie Kingston's way better," and Kevin replied, "He's great, man. What do you want from me?" Or something to that effect. Like, he's awesome, dude. What do you want? Eddie Kingston, very, very strong matchup for sure. I like that one a lot. Marcus, what comes to mind for you? Is there a match that you felt like we missed out on there from that time?
Oh, is there a match? I got a match for y'all. Kevin Steen versus Darby Allin. Easy money.
I think
he would have done some diabolical shit to Darby in those matches, and they would have went band for band and TNT title feud for the ages.
That one is crazy. I think here's a weird one that came to mind for me. Imagine Kevin and Kenny versus the Bucks. How weird would that be as an all-star tag? Kenny and Kevin as opponents, obviously. But imagine them teaming up against the Bucks or doing something. That would have been wild. There's obviously a lot of six-mans, but I have to be honest. When I looked through it earlier, I think Marcus may have got the 1 seed with that Darby match, dude. They would have done disgusting stuff with one another.
It would have been unbelievable.
Darby would have died. The package pile driver to like 2 ladders or some shit. They would have been backstage pitching like the craziest things ever. So Kevin, in this angle, throw me through a car window with real glass. Fuck anything, some shit like that.
Bro, they would have done ladder war. I feel like they would go that crazy with it.
Yeah. Oh baby.
There's some other stuff that like I don't know, because the Ring of Honor thing was weird, especially that first couple years. But Kevin doing stuff with the Briscoes again, right? I don't know what the likelihood, especially. With Jay, I think, unfortunately, would have been unlikely because there was a much clearer of a line right outside like FTR. And obviously guys like Joe, but I don't think Kevin would have been on Ring of Honor, to be honest. But Mark and Kevin definitely would have done stuff, and that would have been a powerful scene, no question. Caden, what matches come to mind for you, mate?
Look, it's probably the woke option, to be honest. But it's Danielson. Danielson and Kevin Steen have had 2 matches ever. Their last one, singles matches, 2 singles matches ever, 1-on-1. Their last one was in 2008. And before that, they had a PWG match when he was still called American Dragon.
Yeah.
So, they have not had a singles match since 2008. That's immediately the one that I want to see. And then, that's just like it's that and like Will Ospreay. It's like the really basic matches.
No, it's fair
for me with just amazing wrestlers that I want to see him wrestle those types of people.
And like even I'm sure he worked with Dean Ambrose a lot. I know he did, but Jon Moxley versus Kevin Steen would have been a different thing.
Yeah,
no question.
It would have bled everywhere.
Here's one that just came to mind for me. This wouldn't be a pay-per-view main event, but it would be an incredible match and program. Kevin Steen versus Christian Cage. Never ever been a thing that we've seen, right? It would have been a brand new thing.
On that one.
He's so good.
There you go. Yeah. undercard matches that are fun to kick around. Kevin working with a Daniel Garcia is a cool
Yes,
thing,
sir.
right? Just imagine.
Where he's in full like young punk that's biting off more
Yep.
Pikachu mode.
Yeah, because I mean,
Oh.
I always
I
love
feel
Danny's.
pretty.
Yes, Caden.
I feel pretty confident that at some point we do get a 2.0 DG Kevin Steen stable.
I think that's very feasible. I always loved Danny's dynamic with Eddie Kingston. I think there'd been a lot of overlap with Steen. This is one just for me, but I have to do it. Give me one of those 2022 Dax singles matches against KO, please. I'll have one of those as a nice side along the way. Here's another one that Marcus and I would debate on the Dynamite review, the Dustin Rhodes match that we would inevitably get. And I would be there.
That's
ready to go.
absolutely happened on like a 9 o'clock say with a Dynamite that's going like 10 minutes. Dustin's going like this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Look at the whole man Dustin. I'm just like, that was cool. Dustin did his thing. Crowd was behind it.
Yep.
Combo 3 1/4. I'll take it.
How do we feel about the inevitable Kevin Steen hook match?
Get
Well,
the fuck out of my face.
they can't all be winners. Now, here's one that's interesting. I think Max would have seen that he's Mick Foley in Kevin. I think he would have done a really bloody match with Kevin and, taken some crazy... Because Max, I think he's always intrigued by that, right? Like, kind of the thing that Randy did with Foley all those years ago. He took the tax bump, or what Triple H did with Foley, even better example maybe. I think they would have had a really extended program, actually, Max and KO.
And I do believe the actual program itself wouldn't be as convoluted as some Max programs tend to be. And it would have been reined in just slightly. It would have been a lot more bare bones and just go out there, kill each other, get your shit off in your promos, have really explosive TV segments, and just keep it straight.
Yeah. I tend to agree. Are there any other matches that come to mind, boys? I mean, the
Actually-
AEW roster
actually
was
do have
crazy
one.
at the time.
I
Go
got
for
one
it.
There's
too.
one at that time, especially if it was signed in 2022. Him and Jack Perry would have been really fun.
It would have Babyface, Jungle Boy,
Yeah.
yeah. Brody King is a good one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brody. I think they would have a tag. I think there'd be some sort of trios or tag match with Luchasaurus and Jack
Dude.
Perry.
Imagine Kevin and the Bucks versus Death Triangle.
Yeah. I'm thinking like a Danielson-esque TV match with Roosh. That
Oh
would
my god, dude. Roosh and Kevin holy
That
shit.
would
be
a bloody
unbelievable
like
match.
Bro, some shit.
You also you think back to 2022. Keith Lee and Kevin Steen would have worked,
Yeah.
and that
That
would have
would've
been in summer
could have been a Swerve in Our
2022.
Glory tag, bro.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Against,
could have been
against
nice.
Jericho and Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's 100% what would have happened. They would have in 2023, Joe. Remember they did the blind tag tournament.
Yeah.
They would because Swerve and Our Glory reteamed in that. They would have 100%
Oh,
had
man.
Steen and Jericho be one of the blind teams, and they would have been a match.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how the dynamic between Kevin Steen and Orange Cassidy would have looked like.
I
That
think
would've
it would
been
have
so-
been
would be-
incredible.
Oh god,
Kevin's good at comedy
would've
stuff,
been
dude.
fucking
He's like one of the
amazing.
best in the world at it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
that,
That would
that
have
also
been
had
really
me,
good.
That also had me thinking with comedy. Juice Robinson.
Juice and you know the law there, Caden, right?
No.
Kevin's first NXT match.
Oh yeah, I do know the lore. Yeah,
Juice
yeah.
breaks
Right.
his
He was
nose.
there.
Out and broke my nose, and we became very close friends as a result.
And Kevin is a
Yeah.
huge Juice Robinson fan. He's always praised Juice's promos, right?
Yeah, I actually just texted him not even 20, 30 minutes ago. That's 6 years ago today.
That'd have been fun, and you could have, yeah, that'd have been interesting. Because I don't think the only problem is, Caden, I don't think Kevin would have been a collider.
No.
I think they could.
He absolutely would.
But Juice. Every once in a while, Juice wrestles on Dynamite.
Juice
Hey.
is just, he's Juice. He's a free spirit,
I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking 1 year later, not 22. I'm thinking 23. I'm thinking C2 run, bro. Like, imagine
Yeah.
what he does to that the bracket that had Mox in it. Like that group, he would have
Yeah.
changed it so bad. It would have been incredible.
Yeah, Golden
Yeah.
would have been a lot more enjoyable to watch with Kevin in it.
That on Dynamite? Oh my god.
And if his run went well and he was still wrestling in AEW, like, obviously Ospreay came up early, but like, even like Bandito, Sure,
Oh.
yeah.
That would have been fantastic.
Oh, the Beast Mortos.
Yeah, that would have been a really fun TV match.
So
Yeah.
this is one of the greatest feuds, arguably the greatest feud in AEW history. What if instead of putting a Swerve in there with Hangman to establish him as a main event guy, what if it was
Yeah.
Kevin in Swerve?
Kevin and Swerve would have bled buckets, dude. They would have
Yeah.
bled. They would have had some crazy ideas, much like the Darby thing we talked about earlier. Yeah.
I think a Steen Powerhouse Hobbs match would be godly.
There you go. That's a nice one.
Fletcher eventually.
Fletcher as a
Fletcher.
heel working Kevin as a babyface. Yeah, that's superb. Lots of great matches that, we did not get, and I think in many of those cases we'll never get. Hopefully Kevin's in-ring tower is not complete. Obviously, we wish the big man all the best, but what an incredible career he's had. And I think the big thing we have to stress, because we had our fun there with match graphics, he did the right thing, didn't he? I think it's fair to say. I mean,
he made the right move, and it wasn't even close. It was,
if he signed a 3-year deal in AEW, just imagine, he would have been there for perhaps the most tumultuous time in the history of the promotion. And instead, again, if his story is complete, and I hope it's not, he was literally there for like the perfect amount of time for the boom, because he watches the whole thing change. Can you imagine being Kevin at the start of 22, looking at those buildings in Raw, and there's a whole empty side of the room, 3,000 people at TV, and then by the end of your run, every building you go to, there's 18, 25. He actually got to experience that. That's special, and he wasn't just part of the team. He was one of the leaders of the team. He main evented 2 different WrestleMania years, one of which alongside his best friend, the other opposite his hero. When we look at Kevin Owens' story, when we put, a bow on his career, and again, hopefully there's a few years in between us and doing that, a big part of that story, no doubt about it, is what he achieved in that last few years in WWE. So as fans of Kevin, and as fans of wrestling, I think, I'm glad it went the way it did for him. And it's an example and a reminder that you can never know for sure until you see it happen, right? Like, when he re-signed, people said, oh, Kevin's retired, I guess. That couldn't have aged worse. Granted, there were factors he never could have foreseen, right, with Vince and Triple H, but it worked out the way it worked out. So,
like in the end, he got to wrestle one of the icons of the industry at the WrestleMania main event. In the other WrestleMania main event, he was a big centerpiece of the big storyline behind the boom, and he got the main event in a tag team match with his best friend in one of the greatest tag matches in the company's history, and the company doesn't give a fuck about tag wrestling.
That's what I was going to say.
That's a giant bow in his cap right there.
It's already a collector's item, and if we're being honest, it will still be one in 40, 50 years. Tag title match, main event WrestleMania, That's important. Tag title match. It wasn't a Rock return tag. It was for the belts. The Usos had that incredible run, and for all of the yeeting and such has followed since, that's still the crown jewel of what the Usos did, dude. Like, that whole thing was magic. So Kevin was a big part of it, and certainly one of the greats of his era. But it was interesting to imagine what if, just for a while, Kevin Owens, hopefully many classics to come. Thanks for watching, folks. Please like the video and subscribe for more grins. To join us live almost daily, head to Late Night Grin, hitting the join button for exclusive watch-alongs, wrestling history lessons, and live Q&As. Keep grinning, folks. All hail.